Welcome back to the Dungeon of Doom podcast. We're still here. We're still working. We'll be here for you all off season. I'm Ben Raven. He is Corey Woods. What up, Doe is back. We just finished Brad Holmes' year-end press conference. It's obviously been a very busy week around here. We're just going to do a podcast today. It's not a mailbag. We got enough to talk about between the coordinators, who's going to fill those roles, the offensive coordinator, who's going to fill that role, if they're going to have a mass exodus of assistant coaches and all that. Yeah, man. It is Thursday? Yeah, it's Thursday. It's
been a long week.
Yeah, no kidding, man. The fact that game to the Commanders was less than a week ago, that tells me how tired I am right now.
Yeah.
But we're good. No excuses. No excuses. The Lions didn't have any excuses. We don't have any excuses. It is Thursday afternoon, January 23rd, and if you've been living under a rock, Ben Johnson is the new head coach of the Chicago Bears. Aaron Glenn is the new head coach of the New York Jets.
Terrell Williams, new defensive coordinator for the New England Patriots.
Yeah, Hank Freely's had 2 interviews with the Seattle Seahawks, and I mean, there's linkage to Mark Brunell with AG staff in New York. I mean, this is a new world for us and the Detroit Lions, because as somebody pointed out today, they went 62 years without a coordinator being named a head coach from a coordinator role, and they just lost 2 in freaking 23 hours.
I know if you're listening, you can see my face on this YouTube version. Wow. But I mean, I guess as I was telling my friends, I mean, I use sometimes Facebook to talk to people, but as I said, when you're the hot girl, the hot guy at the party, everybody wants you. And this is pretty much what's going on with the Lions. I mean, This is a byproduct of being a successful team. When you're successful, and the Lions have been successful for the past 2 seasons, you can really say 3 because they finished at 3 winning seasons.
Yeah.
Everybody wants to see, well, wait, how can we get that over here for us? How can we bring that philosophy into our locker room? And I think it's not just the fact that the Lions were successful, it's the fact that it's been a franchise that's had a history of not being successful, of not having the culture that people want to go to. So now they're seeing how quickly they were able to turn that around under Dan Campbell. Okay, you know what? We know we're not getting Dan Campbell, but we want some of that for our locker room.
Yeah.
I mean, we want some of those tips and tricks and some of that juice and some of that grit in our way. So I mean, hey, this is what happens. This is the start of the Dan Campbell coaching tree.
No, it really is. I mean, that's a great way to look at it, because wow, yeah, Dan Campbell has a coaching tree, like literally already. There's 2 out there, and yeah, that's what the New York Jets are hoping for with Aaron Glenn. You know, Ben Johnson was hired because he's an offensive mastermind, and what he did with Jared Goff, he's a quarterback whisperer. Aaron Glenn is hired by the New York Jets because they're believing what we believe is that AG is the closest thing to a Dan Campbell clone in the NFL in terms of building a culture and just getting a full buy-in. Like, think about the last time the New York Jets had a full buy-in. The task ahead for both Johnson and Glenn, Johnson in the NFC North, and just with the ineptitude that has kind of surrounded the Bears for about a decade, and then Glenn in New York. I mean, winning in New York is tough alone. Winning with that Jets roster and a 41, 42-year-old, I don't even know enigma quarterback. There you go. There's a pitch for your Netflix show. That's a tough task ahead, but like I do believe that if Aaron Glenn gets patience, I think he will see the Jets, man. You'll see a new look Jets team, and I don't know what to think about the Bears. Obviously, Ben Johnson and Caleb Williams. We'll see how that goes, man. But like, it's not going to be like Detroit. They don't have the offensive line.
Absolutely not. I think. So first off, I've seen reports that Aaron Glenn has been given 5 years to work this thing out, and that's a heck of a commitment.
That's awesome.
I think if I would say turnaround wise, I say by year 3, you should probably see the Jets really rolling. Obviously, that quarterback decision on what Aaron Rodgers decides to do, whether he's going to continue another year, whether he's going to hang it up, whatever, that's going to play a big part. But I believe that out the gate, I think that he's going to have that defense rolling.
He's got some pieces on that defense for sure. You know, it's fascinating. You know, Ben gets Caleb and AG gets Sauce.
Yeah.
I mean, what more could you ask for at your positional of expertise? So
absolutely.
Enough about those other teams. You guys don't want to hear about them. We got to move on. The offensive coordinator role, man, fascinated to see where that goes. I think both OC and DC, you could consider the internal options the favorites. right? Like,
Yeah, I would think so. I mean, especially with defensive coordinator. I mean,
yeah,
Kelvin Shepard has been a guy that Aaron Glenn said he was grooming to be a defensive coordinator.
yeah,
And unless AG decides to take him with him, I think that he's got to be at least
yeah.
the odds-on favorite
That's yeah,
to land this one. I mean, obviously, we heard Dan Campbell say earlier this week that they will consider outside. They outside candidates are not off the table. There are still a couple of guys out there that fans have been throwing around
yeah,
as fantasy names, but I mean, again, I think when you lose a guy like Glenn, I think that promoting Shepard would be to me to be the ideal situation.
yeah.
He's been groomed for it. It wouldn't be much of a drop off in messaging. Campbell seems to trust him. And then on top of it, if you end up bringing in somebody, I'm just going to name them. If you bring in some of these outside names, maybe
Mhm.
like a Dennis Allen or Robert Saleh, those are also guys that are going to be back on the head coaching cycle
Yes.
in a year or two. So then you're looking at replacing them again. So you're going to lose your continuity in that aspect. So, I mean, that's just my opinion on that.
No, and I think you're spot on. And I think just reading between Dan's words, it was like what was important to him. If you're not about what we're about, then this job isn't for you.
Absolutely.
Kelvin Shepard defines being about
Yes.
what they're about, and he's been here with Dan under AG with these players since they got here.
Mm-hmm.
And I know people are like, "Oh, he's inexperienced. He was just in the league 6 years ago. He's 37 years old." Blah 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 blah. Yeah, Ben Johnson's like what, 38?
Yeah, Ben Johnson's 38.
Age is a number. They don't care. It's that. I mean, yeah.
McVay is what? McVay is a Super Bowl winning quarterback.
Yeah,
I mean, coming got quarterback coach, and he's like, I think he's barely 40.
Yeah, he's my age.
Yeah,
I'm a
so-
failure. No, but no, I the names. I did a little defensive coordinator name to watch list yesterday, and I mean, it's hard not to think of anything about Calvin Shepard as other than the odds-on favorite.
Yeah.
Like there are some appealing outside names. Salah would obviously represent a buy-in to what they're about scheme-wise, while somebody like Kelvin Shepard, Deshae Townsend, who got interviewed by the Niners for their DC job, Jim O'Neill has defensive coordinator experience in this league at the college level and spent a lot of time working with those safeties this year, and those safeties were pretty good. So I think one of those three guys are probably odds-on favorite. I think it goes Shepard, O'Neill, Townsend, and then outside names, Dennis Allen. Like, there's a lot of rumors connecting him to Chicago. Let's just point out something. Spent 6 seasons with Dan Campbell in AG in New Orleans. Was Dan's freaking college teammate at Texas A&M. And I haven't met too many people that know Dan like that don't love and want to go to war for Dan. So I do think Dennis Allen's name is one to watch. Another, Ryan Nielsen, Jaguars defensive coordinator. They're a mess. I'm sure he would like to get out of that. They're still looking for a head coach. He's got an uncertain future. Coach D-line, assistant head coach in New Orleans with AG, with Dan. It's not just helping out your friends. It's not just looking for those connections. It's like, let's find people that think the way I want them to think. Let me find someone who thinks and speaks the same language that I do, that AG did, that Shep did, anything like that. But I do think the one thing they need to consider is, if you don't promote Shepard, are you prepared to lose him?
That's the thing, right? That's the thing right there that I was wondering about. Like, okay, if you don't promote Shepard, now you run the risk of having to replace another coach.
Exactly.
So it's that. But I think the Dennis Allen thing is intriguing because of everything that you said. I mean, the Bears. The reports are that he's a leading candidate for the Bears job, for the Bears DC role. But there's also reports that the Bears have requested permission to interview Aubrey Pleasant for the same role. Don't know whether that's how serious they're looking at him or not, but I mean, it's hey, Aubrey and Johnson have a relationship from their time here, so
yeah.
I mean, and again, obviously, I think Allen, just in my opinion, no insider. I'm just thinking that he might have been waiting for Glenn to be officially hired to see what his options are.
Absolutely,
because I mean, let's be real, the Lions OC job and DC job are probably the two most coveted coordinator openings in the league. So,
absolutely.
I mean, why? I mean, yeah, he might want to eventually go work with Johnson, but why wouldn't you at least just kind of wait to see what all your options are?
Exactly. And I liked what you said about Salah because, man, that'd be a great coach to have here. There would be some schematic things to get through, but like, that dude's going to be a head coaching candidate for like the next 6 years. Like, he's always going to be getting, do you want to do that again so early? Or do you want to build someone else that helped you build this into being a head coaching candidate, like they did with Glenn, like they did with Johnson. So yeah, I really do think Kelvin Shepherd. I really do. I think that's the answer there. You know, it would be a risk just based on he hasn't done this before. He hasn't, but like, man, you watch. We don't get to see the sideline action a lot when we're up in the box or whatever, however you're watching the game. But like when AG's sitting on the bench thinking about stuff, Shepard's in the middle of those huddles. Shepard's screaming at those guys. Shepard likes to have a good time. He's a great interview, but like when the lights go on,
oh, he's serious.
I'm the boss. You're older than me. We played together. I'm your boss. I mean, he talked about Quan Alexander coming in here and calling him sir. He gives respect. He gets respect. And I just think this place is all about rising coaches, putting people in position that they've earned and stuff like that. And I have a hard time. Those outside names are great, and we'll see. But like, I don't think you want to lose Kelvin Shepherd.
And then again, just look at the whole. I want to go not to stay too much on Ben Johnson, but just kind of look at the trajectory from there. When they decided to go ahead and move on from Anthony Lynn as OC, they didn't go outside.
No,
they
they
promoted from within.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Ben Johnson's a name now, but when he was promoted at that time, he was a rather unknown.
Bro, he was an offensive quality control coach my first year on the beat. Like,
it's like that was promoting Ben Johnson to offensive coordinator to replace a veteran coordinator was a risk.
Yeah.
All of these hires are risks.
Yeah, absolutely. And on the offensive coordinator stuff, I think internal candidates are kind of leading the way there too. I mean, whether you look at Scotty Montgomery, who Dan Campbell thinks is head coach ready. You look at Tanner Engstrom, who followed a very, very similar path as Ben Johnson as the passing game coordinator these last couple of years. Works with Goff a lot. That was something Dan spoke about, that OC position. It's about Jared Goff and continuing to build where he is. We have built this offense to Goff's strengths. How do we continue helping him hit different levels? Mm-hmm. And when you talk like that, I hear Tanner Engstrom's name. Yeah. So there's Scotty, there's Tanner, there's Randall L. Mark Brunell is really connected to the Jets AG rumors as his potential offensive coordinator. We'll see what happens there. JT Barrett's the assistant quarterback's coach, so maybe he's been here a couple years. Maybe he's ready to step into Brunell's role, but like a lot of names to consider. And then Hank Fraley, man, that's kind of like the conversation with Shepherd. Do you want to lose that guy?
Yeah.
Do you want to lose that guy? Like, even if you figure out, I'm not going to steal Colton Pouncey's idea or stuff like that, but like, even if you get to that, like, maybe you do like a co-offensive coordinator thing, like Tanner and Hank, and like Tanner call the plays, Hank's the OC, handle the run game. I love that idea. That's not my original idea, but I love it. And I just think like,
because losing Hank would be monumental.
I mean, Manu, Ragnow, any offensive lineman that talked on Locker Room Cleanup Day was like, I will sabotage his interviews. I will sabotage his process. I can't imagine playing without that guy. He does, man. He means so much to Sewell, Ragnow. He means so much to everybody in this building. So, like, that's one name that I look at as an offensive coordinator candidate, because it's like, Shepherd, do you want to lose him? Dan knows how to call plays. He can help with that process. Yeah. He said no matter what happens, internal or external, he learned a lesson from that Anthony Lynn hire. And that this offense is mine. That's my expertise. Yep. I will be heavily involved in that entire process, no matter what hire makes. So it's my favorite line is Dan Campbell's here. As long as Dan Campbell's here, y'all are all right. Yep. Lions are all right. That offense is all right. Jared Goff is all right.
And then, again, you still have the players.
You still got them. Yeah.
You still got Jared Goff. You still got St. Brown. You still got Jameson, Sam Laporta, Gibbs, Montgomery, the offensive line. You still have the players.
Yep.
So, I mean, and then you have them locked in for a couple of years, at least the core one. So,
absolutely.
I mean,
most of the free agents are on the defensive side of the ball.
Yeah.
The guys you brought in to patch it up. It's Carlton Davis. It's a couple guys like Melifonwu and stuff like that. But the offense is what the offense is. And I know Ben Johnson told Nolan Bianchi down in Chicago yesterday, that offense is going to be a juggernaut for the next 3 or 4 years, with or without me. Mm-hmm. And I believe that. I really do believe that. There might be some hiccups along the way. I mean, nobody's perfect. Nobody's perfect.
Hey, there might be some hiccups. There might be a change in, it could be an increased efficiency. You never know.
We had to get the topic out of the way. That's at the top of everyone's mind. But like, we are coming out of Brad Holmes' press conference. Was not explosive or WWE style of a promo as last year. A little more understandably, not just a conservative press conference. Stuff was said, but not too deep. Right?
Yeah, I kind of took it as
They know what it is.
I want to say like a controlled fire.
Yeah.
Like, all right, look, we're not gonna bang the table and say this, but look, we know changes got to be made. We know things that we need to clean up. It is what it is. Back to the drawing board.
Yeah, and I think the main thing I took away from Brad Holmes is that it's his favorite line. I'm not going to be a prisoner of the moment. I'm not going to rely on recency bias. We're going to stick on the process that got us here. And the process that got them here, they went from a 3-win team. They've been above 500 3 years in a row. They've made the playoffs in back-to-back years. They were the 1 seed for the first time in team history. Back-to-back division titles for the first time of the Super Bowl era. 3 playoff games hosted at Ford Field in a calendar year. The goals are being hit. Yes, they fell short of their ultimate goal. Nobody's hiding from that. I think he said it sucks like 4 times. Like, they're disappointed in that for sure, but they're going to continue to use free agency to fill the depth chart holes and kind of breed competition. And they're going to use the draft the same way that they've used the draft in years past, whether that's doubling up at a position or adding a strength on a strength. They're going to continue to do it, man. They're going to stay true to their guns. So don't expect wholesale changes. I think that was the quote. Yeah.
They've, since 2021, they've literally improved each season. Yep. Now, yes, in playoffs, it was a setback this year. And I think, there are many reasons we can talk about why that happened. Mm-hmm. But they regular season wise, they've improved every single year. And I think that while there are going to be changes on how things looks next year, maybe there might be a change to some approach. The way they got here, they have to stick to their game plans. Because what I've always known, and this just goes with anything in life, the moment you go away from what's working and you panic, that is when you make your mistakes.
Yeah, this is the type of situation. Don't go away from what's working until it's not working.
Yeah.
Like, playoff loss, be damned. That's life in the NFL. It's win or go home. They're home. They're going to stick to the plan, man. And I love Nolan's question about how did you grow as a GM? It seems like a basic question, but like in that situation, it's a perfect question to ask. I love the insight Brad gave. The Zadarius Smith trade, trying to get a veteran pass rusher at the deadline, the toughest player acquisition journey of my career.
I mean, I think even Zadarius kind of alluded to that right when he got here. Like he said, like, hey, as soon as Aiden went down, they did contact Cleveland immediately. Yeah. Like, hey, let's get it happen. And then what did he say? What did Zadarius say? I wanted to paraphrase. He's like, hey, it's possible, but we're gonna wait a little bit before we pull the trigger on that. So I mean, yeah, it took a lot of work for him to go ahead and get Zadarius at the trade deadline. But again, just that little insight right there, it shows you that, hey, Brad Holmes was not asleep at the wheel. He's not. He's always doing what he can to make this team better. But again, I believe he probably said this today. When you're making these deals, the other team has to want to make the deal with you.
Yeah, it's I mean, and honestly, just to elaborate on why that was such a tough process, the NFL trade deadline's early in the season.
Yeah.
If you're not a complete bottom feeder of a team, you're trading someone you might need. There's 2 months left in the season. And so, like, he's like, starters are off the board. You're looking at second, third guys or veterans like Zadarius on deals you can get out of after 1 year. And it's just like, yeah, that's tough. Like, I know they only gave up like a 5th and a 6th and got a 7th back with Smith, but like, teams aren't just selling starters, man.
Absolutely not.
And I also loved his comments about like, man, after that Thanksgiving game, we had to sign 3 players off of practice squads from along the league. Never had to do that before because like that's a 3-week commitment to that guy. It's really nice to hear what he's learned around the way. And we're not going to rely on this too much, but we will play another clip of Brad Holmes. I just want you guys to hear what he had to say about the things he's learned along the way, because I think it's vital for you to hear it from us. So yeah, that was his most thoughtful answer of the day. He's a thoughtful man, but that's the most depth he gave us on the day. And I'm really fascinated to see how this offense goes. He's echoed Dan and saying we're going to stay true to who we are, what got us here. The offensive line is the whole thing. It's the whole thing. That's where we'll kind of get into some forward thinking stuff here. Kevin Zeitler, expiring deal, played a 1-year deal. We got nothing on that other than like we're aware of the situation and we've been in contact with him and we'll see where that goes. Same for Carlton Davis. Same for Aiden Hutchinson. He said it takes 2 to tango. Like you can extend Aiden Hutchinson this offseason. He's got the 5th-year option. Same for JMO. So we'll see what happens there. But I mean, Hutch is one of those next big deals coming.
Yeah.
And the one deal that does sound like it should be coming is Kirby Joseph.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So what do you say? It's on the docket. That means that is a priority.
I mean, the guy pretty much has been playing lights out since he's got here. But I mean, this season, he led the NFL in interceptions.
Yeah.
Whenever the Lions needed a big play, he was the guy that stepped up. Went a couple of weeks without a pick, and I think that's just more so off of some things they had to do with the turnover, with the injuries and whatnot.
Yeah.
Kind of got him a little bit out of whack. But that is a guy that not only just makes big plays, he is one of those. How can I say? We all know Kirby can be a character, but it's more so like he brings a certain edge to that defense, a certain swagger, and he plays with that swagger. And I think other players feed off of that as well. Especially, I think Brian Branch definitely feeds off of it.
Absolutely.
So,
no, I fully agree with that. His presence in the locker room, he's a wild man. There ain't no doubt about that. But he's a wild man who lifts his teammates up, who celebrates his teammates' accomplishments, who really does represent everything the Lions want a safety and defensive back to be about. I know he's probably not the first name national voices think of when they think of Detroit's defense, but man, he's going to get paid. That's going to be a big deal.
And he's, again, just to get to that point, great player, but a great locker room guy. Everybody loves him.
He represents so much of the things Aaron Glenn wanted to implement here, just in terms of tenacity, aggressiveness. Heck, when I asked about Terrion Arnold, Holmes is like, yeah, choppy waters in the beginning, but I love that he's always aggressive, never timid.
Yeah.
Kirby Joseph, always aggressive, never timid. So I would look at Kirby as a name to watch this offseason. I did a little looking into that. The biggest deal in the safety right now is $80 million. I don't expect Kirby to challenge Antoine Winfield numbers, but I don't, I think he's 60 million plus.
I believe they're going to take care of him. He's going to get a handsome deal.
Yeah, I think so too. And man, it's just weird. We'll end with just it feels weird.
I mean, it's a week again. At bare minimum, it was a week earlier than we expected.
Yeah,
we're talking about this.
1 week ago yesterday, Wednesday, we talked to Ben Johnson and Aaron Glenn in Allen Park. Ben Johnson's already had his press conference in Chicago. Aaron Glenn's already been officially announced as the Jets coach. Life comes at you freaking fast in the NFL. And I think as tough as the injuries were this season, 15 wins, back-to-back division titles, top seed, fighting through all the adversity they had to fight through, all the distractions. I mean, Dan Campbell and Brad Holmes are the type of guys that truly do learn from experience. I mean, every coach, every GM is going to say that, I learned a lot. Man, their feet were to the frickin' fire from training camp on with some of these injuries. I mean, you lose Kaminsky, you lose Barnes in week 2, you lose Hutchinson before the earliest bye week in the NFL.
Again, kind of staying with that, I even thought they were playing with house money with that early bye.
Yes.
Just having to keep that momentum up for all that time. I'm like, the week that bye was so long ago.
So long ago. Everybody hates the early bye. But just to get as far as they did, nobody wants consolation prizes, but they held the standard up. Yes, they fell short in the playoffs. That sucks. It's humbling, but like what they had to go through to get there, that's a learning experience. What they're going to have to go through this offseason and replacing offensive, defensive coordinator and then multiple position coaches, that you're going to learn from that. They've already learned from that. They've moved on from guys when it's not working. I mean, Pleasant, John Scott, Dre Bly, like guys, Anthony Lynn, guys they tried and said it's not working. They're not afraid to pull the plug early if something's not working.
That's the one thing I've always been saying about when people just say, "Oh, what are they going to do?" Them losing coordinators. This is new. Replacing people losing coordinators in the same season, the same offseason. This is new, but they have a history of the Dan Campbell of like, hey, if we see this guy's not working, player or coach, we're fixing it.
Yeah, exactly. Nope, and it's as long as Dan's here, as long as Brad's here, y'all are in the best possible hands, the best care this franchise has ever been in.
I mean, he said, Brad said it today, him and Dan are pretty much very aligned in their thought process on things. And when you have a coach and a GM that is in lockstep like that, and they've also have proven results to back them up. I mean, it's only good things to come. I mean, I know
Yeah.
right now it sucks for Lions fans because the expectations were higher, but you just, and I'm not trying to just be like, oh, well, be happy they've
Right.
gone this far, but you have to really just look at, be happy, because what's the alternative? The alternative was what Lions fans are customarily used to, and that's their Super Bowl is the NFL draft. Right now, the NFL draft is used to continue adding to a team that can be a potential Super Bowl, make a Super Bowl appearance. So,
Yep.
I just say, like, hey, this is just one of those things when you're becoming a winning franchise. Sometimes winning franchises, they go home early, they lose.
Yeah.
It happens.
Yeah, for as good as the Niners have been, they don't have a Super Bowl title under Kyle Shanahan. Like,
yeah,
it's hard. It's hard. This stuff is going to happen. Nobody wants to hear this, but like, as long as this thing is pointed in the right direction, as long as you're in the tournament at the end of the season, you got a chance.
And again, you have so many of the core players locked up in deals. I'm just of the mindset that the window is not closing. Like you said, I believe when they get when they get the coordinators, things are going to change. Maybe getting the terminology and getting the groove together might be a little rocky out the gates because it's something new. But when you're talking about the window being closed, I mean, are all of those players just all of a sudden going to
that window's
suck?
It's wide open. That window's propped open.
Is Amon-Ra St. Brown going to forget how to catch?
Exactly. I mean, honest to God, yes, they have some stuff to fill. Yes, they need some depth in certain places, but like, man, there ain't too many more teams that would rather, be in this position going into this offseason the way they are. Man, crazy.
And then on top of it, when you're looking at free agency, Detroit is now a destination.
That's top 5.
So now, if with the guys that are leaving, best believe the guys are leaving, there are going to be guys that are going to be like, hey, how can I get to Detroit? I think Brad Holmes said it last year last year he said that agents were calling because their wide receivers were like, hey, how can we get to Detroit?
That ain't going to end.
That's going to open up with many other positions now.
I mean, you're going to see guys, I think, like Gardner Johnson 2 years ago, guys like Zeitler last year, guys that aren't signed immediately because they're waiting for an opportunity like the one in Detroit. Let's hold out. Maybe I don't want to sign with the Jaguars. Maybe Detroit will call.
Yeah, let me see what they got. Let me see what's going on there. I want to be maybe I can be the guy that gets them over the hump.
You want to be here. When people come here, they rise. That ain't going anywhere. That mentality is not going anywhere. The window's wide open. I'm tired of hearing about the window. If they fall on their face in the playoffs or something terrible happens next year, we can talk about that window then. But the arrow's been stuck, pointed up. And yeah, it shook a little bit losing to the 6-seeded Washington Commanders and a first-year head coach and rookie quarterback. But like, anything can happen on Sunday, baby. And that's a lame excuse, but like, that is life in the NFL.
Real.
Yeah.
It's just real.
And we'll turn this looking ahead. NFL draft, they will pick 28th. And just a note, they will get a 3rd-round pick from AG being hired this year. They will get a 3rd-round pick for AG being hired next year. That is part of the Rooney Rule. That is the reward for having a minority coordinator that rose and got a head coaching job. They will not get one for Terrell Williams leaving. They will not get one for Ben Johnson leaving because it's just head coaches and general managers, and Ben Johnson's white. And so like that's the easiest way to answer that one. Like,
I was asked about that.
It's the Rooney Rule. It's been around since Tony Dungy and like they got fired like 20 years ago. This is not new. I was kind of shocked by like the people in the dark on that one. Like, that is to increase diversity, to open more doors for people where doors were shut on in the past just because of how they looked. So just an update there. 2 3rd-round picks coming. That's not nothing. Brad Holmes has used those 3rd-round picks interestingly in recent years. He will swing for the fences or he'll move up in the order and get something done, man. This thing's going to be continued to build through the draft. The draft is why Brad Holmes is so good at what he has done here. That is how they've built. That is why they've traded Matthew Stafford. Yes, it was for Jared Goff, but yes, they got 2 first-round picks and a 3rd-rounder in that deal too.
And a lot of these guys that have made this team a 15-2 win team and back-to-back division champions is guys that they took in the draft.
Yep. we'll leave you on that note. Ben Raven, Corey Woods, we are your Dungeon of Doom podcast. We'll figure out the off-season recording schedule as we go. We weren't ready to be here this early either, so bear with us, and thanks for all the great support of year, welcoming us to our duo-ship on the beat, on the Dungeon of Doom. It's going great. We're only going to get better too. Nothing but up from here, and we'll see you guys.
See you.